everyone. Today we will report about the human participant rules.
Rules involving human. The following rules were developed to help student researchers adhere to the federal regulations governing professional scientists and to protect the welfare of both human participants and the student researcher. Health and well-being is one of the highest priority when students conduct research with human participants. According to Code of Federal Regulation 45 CFR 46, a human participant is a living individual about whom an investigator conducting research obtain one, data or samples through intervention or interaction with individuals or two identifiable private information. Examples of projects that are considered human participant research include 1. Participants in physical activities, example, physical exertion, ingestion of any substance or any medical procedure. 2. Psychological, educational, and opinion studies, example, surveys, questionnaires, and tests. Studies in which the researcher is the subject of the research. Testing of students' designed invention, prototype, or computer application by human participants other than student researcher. Data or record review projects that include data that are not de-identified or anonymous. Example, data set that includes name, birth date, phone number, or other identifying variables. Rules. Number 1. Student researchers must complete all elements of the human participants portion of the research plan or project summary instructions and evaluate and minimize the physical, psychological, and privacy risks to their human participants. Number 2. Student research involving human participants must be reviewed and approved by an institutional review board or IRB before any interaction, example, recruitment, or data collection, with human participants may begin. It is the responsibility of the IRB to evaluate potential physical and/or psychological risks of the project and make a determination about whether the project is appropriate for student research and safe for the student researcher and participants. A. Projects that are conducted at school, at home, or in the community that are not affiliated with a regulated research institution or RRI must be reviewed and approved by the school IRB before the student may begin recruiting and/or interacting with human participants. The school IRB must assess the risk and document its determination of risk.
B. Projects that are conducted at a regulated research institution or RRI, example, university, hospital, medical center, and government lab, must have IRB approval from the RRI. A copy of the IRB approval for the project must be obtained. A letter from an adult mentor or qualified scientist is not sufficient documentation of the RRI IRB review and approval success. 3. The student must comply with all determinations made by the school or RRI IRB before beginning any interaction with human participants, example, recruitment and data collection. A. If the IRB requires a qualified scientist, Form 2 must be completed by the QS before any interaction with human participants. The school IRB will review this completed form before approving the project. B. If the IRB requires a designated supervisor, DS, Form 3 must be completed before any interaction with human participants. The school IRB will review this completed form before approving the project. C. See rule number 4 below regarding the required procedures for obtaining informed consent or assent or parental permission. Number 4. Participation in research may begin only after research participants have voluntarily given informed consent or assent, in some cases with parental permission. Adult research participants may give their own consent. Research participants under 18 years of age or individuals not able to give consent, example, developmentally disabled individuals, give their assent with a parent or guardian providing permission. The school IRB will determine whether the consent or assent parental permission may be a verbal or implicit or must be written.
A. Informed consent requires that the researcher provides complete information to the participant and, where applicable, parents or guardians about the risks and benefits associated with participation in the research study, which then allows the participants and parents or guardians to make an informed decision about whether or not to participate. B. Participants must be informed that their participation is voluntary and they are free to stop participating at any time. Example, they may participate or decline participate with no adverse consequence of non-participation or aborted participation. C. Informed consent may not involve coercion.
The research study must be in compliance with all privacy laws. For example, U.S. Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act and the U.S. Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act when they apply to the project. For example, the project involves medical information. Students are prohibited from administering medication or performing medical procedures on human participants. A student may observe and collect data for analysis of medical procedures and medication administration only under the direct supervision of a medical professional. This medical professional must be named the research protocol approved by the IRB. The IRB must also confirm that the student is not violating the Medical Practice Act of the state or country in which he or she is conducting the research. Student researchers may not publish or display information in a report that identifies the human participants directly or through identifiers linked to the participants, including photographs, without the written consent of the participants. Public Health Service Act 42 U.S.C. 241. All published instruments that are not in the public domain must be administered. All published instruments that are not in the public domain must be administered, scored and interpreted by a qualified scientist as required by the instrument publisher, and any all use and distribution of the test must be in accordance with the publisher's requirements, including procurement of legal copies of the instrument.
Studies that involve the collection of data via use of the internet, example, email, web-based surveys, are allowed, but researchers should be aware that they can pose challenges in A. Collecting anonymous data, B. Obtaining informed consent, and C. Ensuring the participants are of the appropriate age to give informed consent.
Rule number 10. After initial IRB approval, a student with any proposed changes in the research plan must repeat the approval process and regain approval before resuming interaction, recruitment, data collection with human participants. Rule number 11. After experimentation and before competition, the affiliated FAIR SRC will review for compliance with all the rules. And rule number 12, the following forms are required for studies involving human participants. A. Checklist for adult sponsor 1. Student checklist 1A, research plan or project summary, and approval form 1B. B. Human Participants Form 4 or IRB approval from an RRI and all applicable consents and surveys. Regulated Research Institution Form 1C when applicable. Risk Assessment 3 when applicable.